You're now entering the King of the Court podcast. King of the Court podcast, where we discuss all relevant information in the pickleball universe. Get ready. This is your host, Tyler Leung.
Jimmy.
Tyler.
Jimmy. How's it going?
We're ready, bud.
We're here in my new makeshift studio. How do you like it?
It looks good.
Dude, this is my first time ever doing my own podcast.
I know. You've talked about it for a long time. So
yeah, and so here we are. So hopefully it goes well. If there's any mistakes, it'll be your fault. If not,
put it on me, just like you did Jillian.
Easy there. Yeah, so this is my office. I cleared everything out. We got my collectibles up there. Got this new mixer that I spent way too much money on. All this podcast stuff spent way too much money on, but
that's good.
Hopefully it works out. So let's get right into it. So my name is Tyler Leung. I've been playing professional pickleball for a long time. I've been playing for about 10 years. I started right before Ben Johns. Me and Tyson, I felt like we kind of started at the exact same time. So I've known those guys and known a lot of people in pickleball through that. I got introduced by one of my neighbors growing up. Do you know Tyler Sheffield?
Yes.
So he's an OG.
Yes.
He was a top senior at the time, and he knew that I loved playing tennis. And so he kept trying to get me out on the court. And finally, one day I was able to get out there. And as they say, the rest is history. I started playing for hours upon end every single day, and even love it now and play a lot now. And so I'm really grateful for him for introducing the game, and it's brought a lot of joy and fun into my life. Real quick, let's do a quick intro on you, and then we can get right into it.
Yeah. So Jimmy Miller, I've been playing pickleball since.
What are you, solid 3-2, 3-5?
I mean, that's generous. Depends on the day, but yeah, I've been playing since 2018. I was similar. I actually had a buddy of mine just said, "Hey, you got to come play this game," and we showed up at this park with wood paddles, and we didn't know any better. And these two ladies, they were, I don't know, they had to be in their late 50s, early 60s. And they're like, "Hey, we need two more. Do you guys want to play?" And they wrecked us. Absolutely wrecked us.
Were they, how old were they?
They're probably in their 60s, I would guess. And they still play today. I still see them all the time. Became good friends with them. But they absolutely destroyed us. Yeah. And me and my friend, his name is Brandon. Brandon looked at me and he said, "Never again. We're going to go home. We're going to get really good and we're going to come back." And so, yeah, we literally just started playing every single day. And
did you ever have a rematch with them?
Oh yeah.
Just smoke them now?
Yeah. And I feel good about it too. I don't even feel bad.
Yeah.
So that's how I got introduced. And same thing with you, obviously different levels, but you get addicted and you want to play every single day.
Yeah.
Every waking minute. So it's great.
Cool. How often are you playing now? 5 days a week?
Yeah,
4 or 5 days a week?
I try to play as much as I can. Yeah. So it's fun. I mean, we're in Utah. We've got by far the best facilities, the most access to courts. So it makes it easy.
Would you say, you've increased in skill level recently, or kind of just?
I think honestly, I probably feel like I plateaued, and maybe this is something we can get into later. But
sure.
I have some pickleball pet peeves a little bit, and I think that people jump levels in pickleball. I think that that's a big thing, and I'd love to talk to you about that at some point. But I think people jump levels. I think a lot of people self-rate in pickleball.
Yep.
And so it's kind of wild how they go from 4-0s to 5-0s overnight.
Yeah.
But yet they're still playing against the same people.
Yeah.
So, yeah, we can get into that later.
Well, yeah, we can definitely hit on that later on. And so start us off, Jimmy.
Yeah, so I think the big topic of conversation this week in pickleball is one of your mixed partners.
Who could that be?
Jillian Braverman went on, I believe, her podcast. And she said that she had an experience playing with you recently where essentially every time she missed a shot, you would roll your eyes. You would kind of, had some bad body language.
Not me.
And then, yeah, right? I mean,
couldn't it be me?
Yeah. And then at the end, she said that she actually, I believe her direct quote was, I asked him to stop and said that it bothered me. And his response was, "If you would hit the correct shot, I wouldn't roll my eyes."
Is that inaccurate though?
No, I'm not. Listen, I'm not taking a side on this. I'm not saying here or there. But I guess my question is, let's hear your response. There's always two sides to every story, right?
There is, yeah. And that's actually what I wanted to do with this podcast today. I've been wanting to do a podcast for a really long time. So actually, thanks to Jill for putting this out there and really forcing me to do it. I've had a lot of people reaching out to me, just kind of asking the story behind it and everything like that. I actually have a massive text right here that that I might read. It might bore a lot of people, but yeah, I mean, there's just so much more detail and information that is in these stories than people actually care to even listen to or want to know about. And so, yeah, I'm going to try to respond to that the best I can. Yeah. I enjoy Jill. She's great. She's a very good competitor.
So let's get into this. How did you and Jill become partners to begin with?
Yeah, so that's a great question. So I've known her, I don't know how long she's been playing. She's kind of had an interesting story. I believe she worked for Tennis USTA or something like that, and she got involved in pickleball, and she's very talented, kind of did really well, and then kind of stopped playing. And she's done that a couple times where she plays for a little bit and then tells people, oh, I'm going to take some time off or I'm going to retire, and then comes back to it. And so she was working with Duper. I believe she was CEO of Duper for quite a while, and then she...
Are you worried that your Duper ranking's going to drop now?
Yeah, it actually
After
already
this?
has. Yeah, that's what's going on, I'm sure. Yeah, so I believe she saw the first MLP this year in 2023, and she just said, oh my gosh, I had so much fun watching it, and it just kind of brought back the feelings of wanting to compete and everything like that. So she decided to give it another go. And so since then, she put in her notice, and she's been playing pickleball since. I found out that she was switching back to pickleball, and so I reached out because I had a few open tournaments, and she's a very talented, very competitive player, and I thought we could do well. And so we reached out, we were talking, and we got some tournaments lined up, and we started playing. And so...
so how many did you play together? Have you played
together?
So
we actually didn't play in that many. We played in 3.
3, okay.
Yeah. And she tells everybody this, when she was with Duper, she didn't play at all. Yeah. She essentially took 8 to 10 months off.
Okay.
And
so she's just getting back into pickleball.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yep. So, I mean, nothing on her, but maybe 3 to 6 more months until she's back.
I mean, there's got to be
was.
rust, right?
Yep.
I mean, we can call it what it is.
Yep.
You take that much time off of anything, there's going to be some rust.
Yep. Yep. And so I don't know what to say. I really don't like to be public about this stuff, especially about kind of the tone that she brought. I prefer to do things more privately. But since she kind of called me out publicly, I'd like to make this message and kind of answer some of the questions. As I said earlier, I've been playing for close to 10 years. And I've played with a numerous amount of partners. I've played with Jesse Irvin, Leah Jansen, Anna Bright, Lee Waters, Susanna Barr, Alex Hamner, and many other players.
Some of the most respected women in pickleball.
Sure, yeah, they're all very talented. And not one has confronted me privately or to my knowledge publicly in saying this type of negative stuff. And so... it was kind of hurtful to hear that coming from Jill, especially when she never really tried to talk to me in private, except for she brought it up in the last match or second to last match, and by then it was almost too late. So she,
after this tournament, just some background, she never reached out to you.
Exactly. Not talking about my
because it's been a couple weeks.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And so it was kind of interesting, and here's a little one-liner that I'm sure might get passed around. I mean, I don't even know if I should say this, but if she wants to coin me as an eye roller or anything like that, I guess I would say I would rather be known as a eye roller than a cheater. And so getting into that, I mean, she talks about how she felt very uncomfortable and how it was very difficult for her to play with me. And that's true. And I think she has a lot of validity there. And it is something that I personally have been working on. I mean, I've played with you, and all I'm doing is rolling my eyes because you're missing the easiest balls.
100%. Listen, I have played plenty of matches with Tyler.
Not plenty, a couple.
Okay, we've played enough matches.
I learned my lesson to not play.
I have played matches with Tyler where there might have been money on the line, and I have seen all the eye rolls. But in his defense, I deserved every single one of them.
There we go. Yeah, so, I mean, I've played with Ben Johns and contrary to popular belief, he's not perfect. He actually missed a couple balls. He missed 1, 2, maybe even a couple balls. And when he missed those balls, I wasn't rolling my eyes. The thing with Jill is during our matches, she told me explicitly multiple times, hey, if you see a ball that I need to go on, if I need to Ernie, yell at me. She literally explicitly told me, yell at me. And so I said, okay, I'll do that. And so when there were balls that I think she could have taken out of the air or Ernie'd or something like that, done something different, I would let her know. And then she simply wouldn't do that. And so it was kind of frustrating for me because she had come to me and told me, I want you to do this. And so I started doing it. And then she got mad at me for doing that thing. So that was pretty difficult for me, especially when she came up to me in the first place. Yeah. Now, if it was just me like yelling at her out of my own will or anything like that, that's a little bit different. But she explicitly told me, say, hey, let me know, yell at me. And so that was kind of interesting to hear that from her as well. And then, like I said, going back to the Ben Johns thing, I mean, he misses balls, and I wasn't rolling my eyes. If you miss a ball, my philosophy is if you miss a ball going for the right shot, hey, it happens. It's pickleball. Everybody misses balls. Yeah. But when you miss a ball, when you're trying to do something that you probably shouldn't be doing, that there's a very low risk of it actually happening, that's when it kind of starts to bother me. And so we were in these very tight matches, and there were a lot of shots that she either missed the opportunity to do something good on, or she just kind of wasn't in sync as much. And so that's kind of what was a little bit frustrating for me. And I'm by no means perfect, but I do try to just be a little bit more patient or calculated with the shots that I take. If I'm missing an error or missing a shot off of something stupid, if it's 3 inches off the ground and I try to speed up, I should be getting mad at myself. I personally don't want my partner sugarcoating it and say, hey, that's a nice shot. That's a nice try. Because I deep down inside, I know that's not a good shot.
Yeah. Yeah. So did you feel like the frustration more started to mount? Like, I assume in a 0-0 game, she misses a dink, you're not turning around, rolling your eyes,
Exactly.
It started to mount over numerous games.
Exactly. And truth be told, I personally think it's blown way out of proportion.
Yeah.
I mean, I think there's a number of men's players, even women players, that do the exact same thing.
We see it all over the court in pickleball.
Exactly.
I mean, not one of your previous mixed partners, not to call anyone out, but Jessie Irvine is she's the IRL queen. If you watch her.
I love it. I love it.
Absolutely. You know exactly where you stand with her at all times.
Yep. Hey, when I wear my emotion, my heart on my sleeve, if I'm happy, I'm happy. If I'm sad, then maybe, I'm sad.
Absolutely.
And so I just feel like at the pro level especially, most of the time, whether the shot you're hitting is good or not. You don't need somebody to say, oh, nice try, nice shot, or that's a bad shot. Yeah. Like, hey, come on. We know we're a little bit higher. Yeah.
I think the thing that people don't understand sometimes is that this is a professional sport.
Yes.
This is professional pickleball. This isn't, I know that there's a lot of people that play pickleball at all levels, but you guys are playing at a professional level. And I think that at some point that it's okay to hold people to that standard.
Yep.
In any sport, right? I mean, let's go to NFL coaches. Do they yell at their players? Of course they do. Right? Do they punish their players? And I'm not saying that you're punishing her and that, but there's always that level of frustration. Right? And I think that's okay. I don't think there's anything wrong with trying to hold your partner to a higher standard. Some people respond differently. Anna Bright, she's going to yell back at you. Right? And she's going to yell at you when you make a mistake. I watched it. But then when you guys would hit a good shot or you'd hit a winner, she would celebrate just as much as you.
And that celebration is pure, it's authentic.
Exactly.
It's what you need. It's real.
Exactly. And it pumps you up and it pumps her up. And so I just think that partners can feed off each other, good and bad, but you can't ever take it personal. And when you start to take it personal, that's when obviously, in Jill's case, her game's going to suffer, and then when you start going public with that, it just changes the entire dynamic of things. And I think that, it's in my eyes, obviously I'm not on your level, but it's a professional sport. You're a professional. You need to act like a professional.
No, I agree 1,000%. I mean, I was thinking about it in every aspect of life, basketball, tennis, football, soccer, and work. You're going to have things that your coworkers, your teammates, the opponents do. And if you get mad, if you try to write a list of every little thing that they do that you don't like, that list will never end. I promise you that.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And so, Obviously, if there's abuse or some crazy situation, then that's
Sure.
a little bit different. But I mean,
Sure.
for the most
you're
part,
eye rolling. You're not berating her. You're not swearing at her.
Yeah.
You're not. You literally, like her exact words were, "You rolled your eyes."
yeah, yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
I don't know.
And I mean, I know we just talked about this, but there's so many partnerships out there that do this exact same thing. But guess what? They win. They're still having success, and that's why they're still together.
And winning solves everything, right?
And I guarantee you, had we won the match that she's referring to, this issue would not have been brought up.
Yeah.
I promise you that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So to get into this, what is your status with her as a partner moving forward?
So we were only scheduled to play in a couple more tournaments, maybe 2 or 3. And then she actually sent me a text a week or so after the tournament and just said it'd be better for us to find new partners, which is fine.
Okay.
I mean, we weren't jiving,
Yeah.
and it just seemed like we weren't really making an effort to get better.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, like I said, I really didn't want to talk about this publicly. I mean, everything I do is much more private, but seeing as she kind of called me out, and this isn't only referring to her, I think it's kind of more of a broad thing, broad situation that a lot of people would like to know and kind of the ins and outs of it. But on my side, truth be told, playing with her was actually fairly difficult as well. Almost every single match, we had issues with line calls. And it put me in a very extremely awkward situation because the opponents would look at me and they would want me to intervene, and my partner is the one who's calling it, and I just didn't know what to do in those situations. And so not only with the line calls, but she is known for literally screaming at the opponents when they make unforced errors, just simple unforced errors. She would scream at them, or when we'd hit winner, she'd scream at them.
Let's add that to the pet peeves of pickleball list for sure.
Yeah, and it just, I mean, I love energy. I thrive off energy, but there's a time and a place. If somebody misses a serve, a return of serve, like, to me, it's just not proper. It's not right.
You didn't force that error.
Exactly.
You did nothing wrong. It was there.
Yeah, you did. You served it. Come on, man.
Okay, yeah. Yes, I mean, I feel like cheering unforced errors.
And it's one thing to cheer to
tough.
your teammate,
Yes.
to your partner, but it's one thing to try to stare them down.
Yeah.
And it just got really awkward for me because I didn't know how to handle that. I didn't know if I should cheer with her or just kind of move along. And so that got really awkward for me. There's 2 situations that come to my mind. One of them is that it was in Austin. We played Ben and Annalie on center court. And I don't know what was going on, but did you see that match?
I did.
Okay.
I did. I know exactly what match.
I mean, it was weird because she literally fell down like 3 to 5 times, which is fine. But the funny thing or the interesting thing is the matches before and after, she maybe fell down, if I can recall, maybe 1 time outside of that. It's all of a sudden we get placed on center court where it's being live streamed. Like,
you're playing the number 1 team in the world.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it's like, hey, these theatrics, all this stuff is different than what I'm used to. And it's like, I'm not exactly sure to handle this.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, obviously we don't want to assume anything. But it is a little bit interesting when none of that occurs in any of the other matches. And then all of a sudden you're on center court against the number 1 team in the world. You know that everybody's watching.
Yeah.
And, you start to act a little bit different. You're falling down. You're getting a little bit more attention. Maybe even looking for a little bit more attention. It seems, it does seem interesting for sure. And then, I mean, to be honest, to continue that, to go on to your own podcast. I think that's a big thing that's happening in pickleball right now is what we like to call clout chasing. And
Tyson brought
everybody's
that up.
got a hot take and everybody's looking for attention. And, whether she was or she wasn't, she's getting it right now.
For sure. Definitely. I mean, Tyson said it, you said it. There's some new players that maybe they're not winning as much or winning tournaments or winning rounds. And so they want to try to stay relevant. And they think by staying relevant, they can call people out. They can do funny, interesting things or whatever. And it gets people talking about them because with that exposure, they get a little bit more opportunity. And so I'm not making any assumptions, but it is just interesting to see how that kind of played out. The other thing that was really funny with the line calls, and like I said, I would never be saying this publicly, but I just felt like I got cast.
I let it out.
I just got cast in it. Well, this is a very small amount of stuff that I I could be saying. But one of the instances is that in that Austin tournament, we were playing this team. It was close in the beginning, kind of back and forth, and they hit a ball down the sideline, and she called it out. To me, it was very close. It maybe was inside the line, on the line, or inside the line.
But it's a tough call for you to overturn, right?
Yes,
obviously.
yes, yep.
As her partner.
It was in the shadows, everything like that. She was sitting on top of the ball.
She had the best angle, and clearly it was her call.
Exactly. And anyways, the other team starts losing it because they started challenging it. They got mad at the ref, and she stood by her call. Anyways, we ended up winning that match. And right after the match, she comes up to me and she says, "Oh my gosh, that match was being live streamed. I didn't know." And it was so funny because her expression on her face at that time was like, had I known that was being live streamed, I would have acted completely different.
Yeah. See, that makes it tough, and that it's telling, definitely.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think that. So one thing that we're learning about pickleball, and speaking of newer players that love to be on social media, Christian Alshon is. He actually tweeted out that his goal was to tweet every single day.
Yeah.
No matter what it was, he was going to tweet something every single day.
Yep.
And the other day he said something, probably the first time he said anything that worth value, but he said that there are way more high-level men's players than women's players.
Sure.
And so a lot of the men's players are essentially suffering and having to play with lower level women's players that probably wouldn't, if the numbers were even, they wouldn't most likely be professional players to begin with.
Sure.
And I mean, I don't think that's a secret.
Yeah.
I mean, we see it, right? And you see it in MLP, you see it in all across the PPA tour, that when, the best women's players in mixed are the ones that are winning, right? Yep. You can take the top 5 women's players. I don't want to say it doesn't matter the men's that they play with, but it matters a lot less.
Yep.
And those are the ones that are winning. So I think maybe sometimes we're getting some people in pickleball who probably aren't as high of a level as they should be, and wouldn't be otherwise.
Yep.
And maybe they're in it for other reasons.
Sure. No, there's multiple examples out there.
Yeah,
definitely. One thing I will say, I agree with that statement by Christian. Very funny tweets out there sometimes. But let's see. Yeah, this is an issue or something that has been going on for a long time. It's not new by any means.
Yeah.
I actually love seeing the growth in the female side.
Yeah.
You used to, maybe 2 years ago, a normal singles tournament for women. What do you think it is?
2 years ago?
Yeah, 2 years ago.
Oh,
yeah.
2 years ago, it was like 8 to 12.
It was like 5 to 8 players.
Yeah, tops.
5 to 8 players, almost every single tournament.
Yeah. Yep.
That was
exactly.
wild. Now we're getting 12 to 20, which is awesome.
Yeah, and it's growing, and
Yep.
the level and the skill level is definitely growing, and there's better players. In fact, your next tournament, we'll talk about this, but you're playing with Hurricane Tyra Black, who is another one of the up and coming new, tennis. She's a tennis transplant, right?
Yep.
And so I love to see it grow, but for a while it was rough. Like there's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. And if a lot of women came in that, truth be told, they're going 1 and 2 and finishing in 5th place.
Yep.
Which looks great on paper, but the reality is when you go back and actually look at the bracket, it was different. And so I love to see the growth. I love that, everybody's elevating their game.
Yeah.
And there's a lot more high-level female players coming in the game. Anna Bright's one of them. That's obviously, and Anna Bright's partner, is one of her tennis teammates at Cal. So hopefully, we're adding even more, females to the game. Yeah. So
no, I love it. Love seeing the diversity, the new players, the new talent, the different strategies, the different strokes, techniques, everything like that. It's fun to be a part of. Yeah. And I'm grateful to be along in this journey. I've been doing it a long time, like I said earlier. Yeah. One other funny thing is I don't want to spend this whole time talking about this whole situation. I really don't want to be talking about it too much because I think it's been way blown out of proportion. But it is actually a little bit funny because the past 3 to 4 days I've had more females reach out to me than I've ever had in my career wanting to play mixed doubles. And so I don't know if that had anything to do with her comments or what her podcast did or anything like that. But clearly people want to win. And if they think somebody is going to help them win, whether or not that person has a good attitude or not, they'll probably still play with them if they're winning. 100%. If they lose, then that's a little bit different. And so, like I said earlier, there's a lot of players who I know for a fact they're not in a good situation. They don't love their partnership, but hey, they're winning. They're having close matches, and so they're fine with that. They're willing to put aside these small little differences that might bother them and do it for the greater good.
Well, one thing that we always talk about, go look at the memes of pickleball has an entire section on Colin Johns rolling his eyes at his brother, who is the #1 player in the world.
Yeah.
And so,
I think, to clarify, I think some of it was at his brother, but also some of it was when it hit the net.
Okay, yes.
But regardless, he's rolling his eyes.
Yes,
his on-court
exactly.
demeanor, everything like that. Yeah.
But if you're winning solves everything.
Yes.
And you can overcome a lot of things. And I promise you that the #1 partnerships, I guarantee that Ben and Annalie have had their disagreements.
Sure.
Have they aired them publicly?
Sure.
No, of course not, because they're professionals and they're winning.
Yep.
Right? And that happens. I mean, we've seen Annalie, last year before, yell at her own mother.
Yep.
So it happens.
Exactly. 100%. Anyways, if I'm going to be known as an eye roller, I'd rather be known as an eye roller rather than something else.
Yes, absolutely.
Anyways, moving on. This is the end of this. I really don't want to discuss it too much more, but there's so much more I could have said, but I'm not going to.
But Jill, if you do want to come on the podcast, we'd love to have you.
Yeah. So I just got to remember to not roll my eyes. The only other thing I'll say is if people start airing their voices about their partnerships, that's scary for their partner, because if her new partner knows that she says that about her partner, that puts a lot of pressure on her.
Are you going to want to, you want to play with them.
Like if you accidentally roll your eyes or accidentally say something or accidentally do something, who knows? Maybe she's going to come on and voice her opinion about that.
And I think emotion is part of the sport.
Yep.
Emotion, good and bad.
Yep.
And the fact is, everybody shows emotion in their own way.
Yep.
We got people flipping the bird, right? Pablo's flipping the bird at people. Like there's emotion in the sport. It's what happens.
Yep.
And if you feel like you can't show any emotion, I think that does make it hard to partner with somebody.
Yep.
And especially this new younger generation of players that are coming in right now, right? The Julian Arnolds and the Pablos and the Feds, those guys, they feed off of emotion. They need that emotion. They need the screaming. They need the yelling, right? That fires them up. And
I keep saying I'm moving on, but I played with Alex Hamner, who's a senior player.
Yeah,
she's
absolute OG.
She's in the Hall of Fame.
Yes, best of the best.
I played with her for 2 years or so.
And maybe the classiest person in pickleball.
Yep, she's super nice, and we did actually extremely well. We had a lot of success. I think we even took 3rd or 4th in the Pro US Open mixed doubles. Anyways, we did really well, and there were a lot of times when I rolled my eyes, and now looking back, I'm still really good friends with her. We have the best stories. All we do is laugh. All we do is talk about different situations, different matches where she did this, I did that, my reaction was this. And so, it's kind of fun to look back on those matches and see how things played out.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, you never took it personal.
Yeah.
And I get it. Look, we can all be better. You admitted that you're not perfect.
Yep.
You can be better. It's something that you're working on, right?
Yep.
We've all seen the frustration. I've experienced the frustration firsthand playing with you. But again, at the end of the day, I think that it's part of the sport. It's something that happens in all sports. And to air it publicly, I think it's definitely bad juju going forward.
Yeah, especially when she didn't even try to talk about it privately or anything like that.
If she had reached out to you before and you, in my opinion, again, had she reached out to you and you just blew her off, or you just told her she was stupid or whatever comments that you would have had, then okay, sure, go for it. But yeah, to just go on a podcast and you hear about it. I assume you heard about it on Twitter.
All of a sudden, all these people started messaging me saying, "Oh, did you see that video?" I'm like, "No," and then
so that's what makes it tough. But
anyways, I really personally, I don't like drama myself. I like hearing about it with other people, other situations.
We all love to watch drama. We just don't want to be part of it, right?
Exactly. And so, I'm happy to talk to Jill. I don't have anything negative to say about her or anything like that. Everything I said is out there in the open. It just didn't work out this time. Maybe it might in the future. Who knows? But yeah, moving on. So, paddle testing, super hot right now.
Yep. Let's talk delaminated paddles.
All right. Here's a little hot take. This topic is blown way out of proportion.
100%. I think that this is the hot topic of pickleball right now. And I think, unfortunately, it's not making as big of a difference as people think in doubles.
Yes, I was exactly about to say that. In singles, I think it does make a big difference.
See it. I can see it in singles.
Yep.
In doubles, I don't think it makes as big of a difference as people think.
I actually think it makes a disadvantage to the player using the paddle because they can't control it nearly as much.
We've seen it, right? Yep. We've seen people not be able to control their paddles. Obviously, in singles, when you're standing at the baseline and you're hitting passing shots, it's a little bit different, right? I mean, but we've also seen a lot of people called out for having delaminated paddles, and they actually weren't.
Yes.
And so that's the other thing is like, you're calling people out. Leia, we love you, but you're calling people out for having delaminated paddle. And the reality is
not only Leia, there's other people too.
Yeah, there's other people, right? Lucy called out Krista Gretchkova. I think that's how you say it. I don't know. Anyways. And neither of them, their paddles tested, they were within compliance. So I think it's a hot take right now. I think that it is something that needs to be fixed. I think the PPA is addressing it. Yep. Now they're doing on-site testing. Sarah Ansberry knew that her paddle was very close and she still decided to use it. And then at the end of the match, it failed.
Yeah.
Whether it made a difference in that match or not, we don't know. She still chose to use it. I think that's on her. She's owned it in her defense. Yeah. But at the end of the day, I think that it is such a huge hot button issue. And I don't know, you play against people all the professional pickleball player. Yeah. You're playing against these delaminated paddles allegedly. I mean, last year it was everyone that came in with carbons, right? And then there's people that didn't have the carbon paddles yet. Yep. Now it's everyone has these delaminated paddles. You tell me, do you see a massive difference? Do you think it's a huge advantage if you are playing with a delaminated paddle?
It provides more power for sure. But like I said, the huge disadvantage is most of these players can't control it.
Yes.
And so if you can hit good dinks, which you should be able to as a pro player, then they're not going to be able to do much with it. Sure, they might get a couple balls, but I would rather take that versus what they're able to do with a controlled paddle for sure. And in singles, I think it does help because passing shots, you're just going for passing shots. You don't need accuracy as much. Yeah. And I was actually talking to, I don't want to name his name, but he's extremely high up at the PPA, and we were talking about the paddles, and he essentially said the same thing. He said he thinks it's blown out of proportion. Yeah, I
think so too. And I think that sometimes we find these hot takes, these hot buttons, and we all pile on because that's what everybody's talking about right now. Yeah. But I think at the end of the day, I think that the manufacturers are doing everything that they can to keep them within compliance. Nobody wants their paddle to be that paddle, right? Nobody wants everybody to stop having to use Vatic Pro or stop having to use the carbons because their paddle, has been banned by the PPA or USAP or.
Yeah. Another funny story about that is, and I don't want to name this player's name, but he's working on a new paddle. He's been using a new paddle, and he's been extremely vocal about the delamination, the paddle testing, everything like that. And I heard that his paddle was supposed to be released, but it has yet to be released. And do you know why it has yet to be released from what I've heard?
Because it's not passing.
It's not. It's delaminating, and so it kind of puts these players, if they run their mouth and they talk really bad about something, who knows, down the road they might have an issue with that. And if Leia or somebody who's been extremely vocal, if they get caught using a delaminated paddle or a defective paddle, that looks really bad.
Yeah, absolutely. So here's my question. So I read I think it was on one of those blogs. So are all of your paddles tested? Explain the PPA. Testing your paddle. So I know that if you essentially call somebody out and you ask to have their paddle tested, they'll test it. But are all the paddles tested pre-match? And then if you're not, my understanding is, and then if it's not contested, you do still get your results, but your results are anonymous.
So I'm probably the worst pro player to ask about this because the paddles I've been using do not come anywhere near the threshold. And so I just really haven't been paying too much attention with that. Yeah. I know with the PPA tournaments, everybody has to get their tested for the quarters, semis, and finals. They have to go to Carl Schmitz with USA Pickleball, and he does the test on it, and then they get a little sticker, which I think is kind of comical because you can literally remove that sticker if you wanted and put it on another paddle. And then the process, if you challenge a paddle, I believe it has to be done during the match or at the end of the match. Yeah. It can't be afterwards. And they take the paddles and they test them there. And then if they find out that they're illegal, then that team loses that match.
Yeah. And so that's what happened with Sarah Ansberry, right? She ended up having to forfeit that match. Yeah. So So there are paddles that have failed testing, but we don't ever hear about it.
Sure. Yeah.
Because they haven't been contested during the match,
Yes.
right?
Yep.
And so there could be pros out there that are actually using delaminated paddles, but they've never been called on it.
Yes, up till the quarters.
Okay.
Up till the quarters.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think that obviously, the pickleball is an evolving sport. We're starting to get a lot more money into pickleball, right?
Yep.
I mean, people are dumping money into it. It's growing. I mean, 1.25 million viewers.
Yep.
On CBS. I think that as the sport starts to evolve, I think we are going to see, I don't want to use the word cheating, but I think we are going to see people do whatever they can to get a competitive advantage.
Yep.
Whether that is paddle technology, whether that's, obviously I don't think people will purposely delaminate their paddles, but I think that they're going to see.
According to one pro, I think there's been a minimum of 6 pro players that have gone to the paddle doctor.
Yeah. So there you go. So maybe we'll see that. We'll see people definitely push their specs. We'll see people get after their paddle sponsors to push technology and push their specs. Right. I mean, and then I think we're going to see other things. I think we're going to see PEDs. Let's just be real. I think we already are seeing PEDs.
Sure.
I promise you that we're seeing Adderall.
Yep.
I think we're going to see a lot of these things because there's just too much money on the line. And the more the sport grows and the more money, if there's no testing, there's no universal governing body, which there isn't right now. I mean, they're trying to, but.
Okay. So this is totally off the books. What are your thoughts? Okay. So I think most people know this, I think Tyson serve is extremely illegal most of the time. Dekel serve, not all the time, but maybe 15 to 20% of the time. There's other players out there too.
Yeah.
If they're not getting called on it, is that illegal if they're not getting called on it?
Well, so I think that's an interesting topic because when Don Stanley has to get down on one knee every single time Tyson serves, I'm sorry, but it doesn't matter if he's on one knee. If it's that close, right? I don't know if he's ever called him for an illegal serve, but I see him get down on one knee every time he goes to serve. If it's that close that you feel the need to do that as a referee, then I think my personal opinion is that Tyson needs to adjust his serve.
Yeah. So the only reason I say that is I said, and I've been working on doing a higher serve, higher contact point, and I've been using it, and I used it with this rec game I did the other night. And the first time I did it, they said that serve is so illegal. Yeah. And I said it never gets called. If it's not getting called, is it illegal?
Yeah. And honestly, if it's not getting called, I mean, you know what? I feel like. I don't know. I think that it's there's
and
another.
I can promise you're going to see a lot more players start to do those types of serves until
why wouldn't
something
you?
comes in. Exactly.
When you go with a higher contact point, right? I mean, I'm not the smartest guy, but it's physics, right? You're going to get more power.
Yep.
And Tyson and Dekel, would you say, probably have two of the more powerful serves on tour?
Yep.
And
it's not necessarily the power that they're getting with it. A lot of it is the court spacing. A lot of the time, the courts are very small, and if they're doing those types of serves on small course, it's pushing you into the fence.
Yeah.
I mean, Jay DeVilliers, he made a huge point about this. He almost did an overhead serve just to illustrate his point. Yeah. And it wasn't so much the fact that he was getting away with it. It's the fact that he didn't have any room to return it. Yeah. It's like.
Yeah, absolutely. And that makes sense, right? I mean, the speed, the power, the distance, and you could probably even control it a little bit better.
Yep.
And so, I think that's tough. And, I get it. I get why Tyson wouldn't change it. One, it's all he's known. Clearly, that's what he's been practicing.
Yep.
And it works, right? Especially works for him in the singles.
Yep.
I mean, he has a huge serve in singles.
Yep.
That helps him a ton. Ben used to have a big serve.
Yep.
Right? I think that he's dialed it back a little bit. You see him ramp it up once in a while.
Every once in a while when he needs to.
When he needs to,
he'll rip it out.
He will fire it up and he'll ramp it up. But for the most part, he's dialed it back and it looks, from my untrained eye, a lot more legal than Tyson's serve, which every single time he serves, I mean, his contact point.
I feel like I actually handle it fairly well, but if you're playing mixed doubles or doubles and your partner's struggling, it's just to me, it's not fair.
It's back to the spin serve days, right?
Exactly.
It's not quite spin serve level.
Yeah.
But I do think that it's a huge advantage.
But mark my words, unless something changes soon, you'll see a lot more players.
Why wouldn't you? Everybody's going to adapt it, right? Why wouldn't you
Yep.
adopt that serve if it's that big of an advantage?
Yep.
You know, I mean, Rick, you see the other thing with Deckel is how far onto the court he comes when he makes contact.
Yep.
Is he over the line when he's making contact? Is he stepping onto the court? It's pretty freaking close.
Yeah.
I mean, and he has a massive serve. He puts every ounce of his 220 plus pounds into that. Like, yeah. So I agree. I think you'll see it. You'll definitely see it. I mean, it's just like you said, the spin serve, everybody adapted it, right? I mean, Ben Johns ended up having an insane spin serve.
Yep.
You know, Zane, we haven't heard from him since the spin serve went away.
Yep.
So yeah, I think it's a big thing, and you'll see that people will do whatever they can to get that advantage.
No, love it. Yeah, we're kind of running up on time, so let's just kind of wrap up. So
so let's talk about your week coming up.
Cool.
So we've got North Carolina.
Yep.
You got 2 new partnerships.
Yep.
2 players you've never played with before.
Right.
So we're going to call him Iggy, James Ignatowicz.
Papa Jimmy.
He's not, there's only one Jimmy in pickleball. He hasn't earned that title. Big Papa Jimmy.
Yeah.
He, so former tennis player.
Hold on one second.
Papa Jimmy. So former tennis player, I believe Vanderbilt.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
You know, we'll call him Mr. Anna Bright.
Yep.
I mean, look, he burst onto the scene.
Yep.
I'd say that he's one of the tennis transplants that's had the most success, the fastest.
Mm-hmm.
You know, he's had a couple and he has also ended up with some good partners. But originally, just to add a little bit of drama here, he was scheduled to play with Tyson.
Yep.
And Tyson actually dropped him for Jack Sock.
Yes.
Who, again, pro tennis player.
Yep.
And so just for the people out there that are listening, all the talk about Tyson being dropped at PPA Red Rock, and that's why he ended up playing with Brendan Long. Tyson was dropped because he dropped James first.
Yep.
And so James said, if you're going to drop me for North Carolina, then I'm going to drop you for everything else. And so Tyson...
I don't know if he did everything else, but...
Okay, but yes. So he dropped him for PPA Red Rock for that reason. Yep. So Tyson did use that as this chip on his shoulder, and he used it to fire everybody up. And every interview but just to be clear, Tyson started that entire thing.
Yeah, and Tyson is known for dropping a lot of players.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, we've seen it. So you and James, so he's had a lot of podiums, a lot of success this year.
Yep.
Originally, he was scheduled to play with Tyson. Mm-hmm. So how did that partnership come about?
Yeah, so I actually was wanting to get in a couple tournaments with James for this year, and we were talking about it, but then he ended up going with Tyson just for the full year. And then he reached out back to me, I believe, a couple months ago, just said, hey, I got this tournament open. And so I think I had it open as well. So we just decided to play it. I think he's got one of the highest ceilings. His power is incredible. Yeah. He's got so much power, and with that paddle he's using is insane. And so I'm excited.
He's a big guy, right? He's like 6'3", right? He's a big dude, and I
just hope I don't start bouncing around like him. Do you think that'll wear off?
Yeah, I mean, it's one of you has to stay calm, so you need to decide who that's going to be. Yeah, because that guy. The amount of caffeine he's got to drink before a tournament's got to be pretty insane. Yeah. And then for mixed, we just discussed your previous mixed partner. Yep. You're playing with another up-and-coming tennis player, Hurricane Tyra Black. Yep. So how did that happen? Did you reach out to her?
That was pretty lucky on my part. I guess she just didn't have this tournament or wasn't planning on playing it.
That's great.
So I reached out, and she had it open, and so we're going to give it a go, see how it goes. I'm excited to play with her.
And have you never played with her before? Never?
Exactly. I actually haven't even seen her play that much. Okay. I mean, she's fairly new.
Yeah,
I would say within the last 6 to 8 months or so.
Yeah, and she and like most tennis players,
I think she's got a lot of potential as well.
Yeah, tons of potential. And like most tennis players, she burst onto the scene as a singles player first. And now she's getting more into to doubles. So Tyra Black is your mixed partner. She goes by the Hurricane. Actually has a sister, Tornado.
I heard that.
Yeah. So she was a pro tennis player.
That's awesome.
In fact, I think she actually won a couple, ITF titles, and
that's impressive.
So she's definitely, has that racket sport background. Yeah. So like you said, she just did not have a partner for this tournament, and you guys just hooked up, and you're going to give it a shot.
Yep. Yeah,
and
it should be fun.
Yeah, and you've kind of been known to do this, so let's talk about this a little bit because I remember specifically getting a text from you about Anna Bright.
Yeah.
And I think she had just played her first pro tournament. And I feel like she was kind of, I don't want to call her your discovery, but I think you were the first high level player to take a chance on her.
I mean, yeah, I don't know.
I'm going to give you too much credit here, and you're not going to take it.
That much credit. She was going to be great. It was just a matter of
and everybody
of
saw
time.
it for sure. But I still think it takes somebody, to reach out and to take a chance on her.
Yeah, no, it was fun. I mean, it's so fun when you have a partner that you can rely on, that's consistent, that you gel with. It's just fun. It's fun competing that way.
Yeah, and so hopefully, obviously, you and Tyra have the same type of success, and you can get in.
Just can't roll my eyes.
Get in early. Don't roll your eyes.
Yeah.
But I've seen her on the court.
Yeah.
And I've watched her play, and you may get more eye rolls than you give. So,
hey,
so
if I'm getting eye
don't
rolls,
get offended.
I deserve it.
Don't take it personal.
Yeah.
Couple other things about Charlotte. Let's talk about about this North Carolina is Jack Sock.
Yep.
That's the big topic of discussion, right? Mm-hmm. Pro tennis player, high level pro tennis player, top 10.
Yep.
In the world tennis player, playing in his first pro pickleball tournament. I think we see this a lot. Okay, we see a lot of tennis players talk about Sam Querrey, right? We talk like even Kristen Alshon, who we've talked about earlier. They expect that they're going to come over and they're going to dominate, and they're going to be top 5 in the world and pickleball players, and they're just going to and it hasn't happened yet.
Yep.
We haven't seen that. We've seen them work up to it. We've seen them take a year or two. We've seen the success. Obviously, we see it more in singles than we do in doubles. What's your take on Jack Sock? What are your expectations for him?
The thing I'm going to say to preface everything is I think Jack's a great player. I think he'll do very well. But a lot of people think that he just picked up a paddle, and that's incorrect. He's been playing for a minimum of 5 years. Whether it's consistently like every single day or something.
Difference.
But that's a big difference that a lot of people are leaving out. Now, with that said, I think he'll do well. I think him and Annalie, I actually think they could do extremely well.
They could win it.
Yeah, I think singles will be interesting just because the nuances, the strategy, it is quite a bit different than tennis.
Yeah.
Him and Tyson could be interesting, but I actually think him and Annalie will have
And I believe looking at the brackets, if I remember correctly, if he wins his first round matchup, he will play Jay DeVilliers.
I'd have to pull that up.
Which would be interesting.
Yeah.
As well. So I mean he's gonna get thrown into the fire right away.
Yep.
So yeah,
but he's got a lot of power.
Yeah.
He rips that ball. Yeah,
absolutely. So that'll be an interesting matchup.
Yep.
But like you said, there is a big difference between transitioning straight from tennis and playing pickleball, at least casually for 5 years.
Yep.
Because I'm sure that he's played he's played high level games.
Yep.
And we saw it at some of these pro-ams, right? When I think it was down in Arizona
in
when
Vegas.
Vegas, yeah. He was good. He was the best tennis player on that court.
Yep.
And it was clear that he had skills.
Yep.
And so, I think that's a little bit different.
He'll play James Ignatowicz.
Oh, Ignatowicz. Okay.
Assuming they both win.
Okay, so there you go. So now there's a lot of power on that court between the two of those guys. Yeah. So that'll be interesting to watch. I think that's what everybody's excited to see.
Yep.
They're excited to see Baby Waters play with somebody else. Not named Ben. Excited to see how he does. And so I think that's good for pickleball. I think it's great for the sport.
Cool.
Yeah.
Awesome. I asked a question on my Instagram, which is where I'm most active, about questions that anybody had for this podcast. We'll kind of do rapid fire these. Somebody said, when are you going to SoCal? I believe the next time will be in MLP, which is in June, the first or second week in
San Clemente, right?
Yep.
Everybody's favorite tournament.
Yeah,
everybody's
they
favorite
love it.
location.
I mean, it's beautiful area, beautiful location. The weather is great. I mean, what's not to like? It's California.
Yeah,
so,
absolutely.
That'll be the next time I'm in California, so I'm excited.
Will that be your last event before the redraft?
Yep.
So this will be the last event for the Seattle Pioneers, and then they'll essentially break it up and redraft.
Yep.
Okay.
Unfortunately, we have a great team, and
absolutely.
I love it. What in pickleball needs innovation right now? I think they were referring to more of a product standpoint. I think there's still, I mean, we talked about this a little bit, but partnerships, there's a very interesting, nuanced way that partnerships kind of form. And it's very weird. I don't know if I love it. And so if there could be something done about partnerships, how partnerships get arranged, how they get set up for tournaments.
Do you get any help with that? Is there a player liaison that helps with partnerships? Or is it really
I mean, if you're in a pickle, like somebody dropped out or something and there's a tournament in 1 or 2 weeks, yeah, somebody will look out. But if you're booking for 2, 3, 4 months down the road, you're on your own.
But you guys are obtaining partnerships in essence the same way that I would or anybody else. You just throw them a text.
I was talking to Steve Kuhn, and he actually had a pretty interesting idea or tournament that he wanted to do is you put every name in a bucket and you just draw names for partners.
Yeah,
and the best team, the best players, they should come out on top.
Yeah. What if the other thing that I've heard that they take world rankings and you take 1 through 16 men, 1 through 16 women, and the number one man plays with the 16 and all the way down the list.
I think it'd be fun for some tournaments. I mean, every single tournament, probably not, but for some tournaments, I mean, that's why people love MLP is there's variety. People, as much as I love them, people don't enjoy seeing the same matchups every single tournament.
It's the same, right?
It's the same.
I think the stat the other day was that JW and Dylan, Ben and Colin, and Riley and Matt were undefeated except for against each other for the entire season. You know,
one thing that
until the Johns brothers just lost.
One thing that somebody pointed out a while ago that really dawned on me is when you play the number one team, Ben Johns, Colin Johns, versus say the number 2 team or somebody further down there, it's not the number 1 versus number 2. It's the best player and the second best player, presumably, versus the third or fourth.
Yes.
That's a big difference. Or even if you go further, if you're playing the third best team or fourth best team, it's not the 1 and 2 player versus
100%.
the 3 and 4. It's 1 and 2 versus 5 and 6.
Yeah, exactly.
Or something like that.
Yeah, exactly. Which is a huge gap for sure.
Huge gap. And it only gets bigger the further
and then if
go.
you look at it mixed, right? It's the number 1 and the number 1. And then, I mean, if you're lucky, you may get a 2 versus a 5, maybe. A 2 and a 5.
Just because you're number 1 seed does not necessarily mean both you. It's just a little bit
exactly. Different. Yep. That makes sense.
Paddle testing. We talked about this a little bit. What does pickleball need in innovation right now? I think paddle testing, it's still very nuanced. There's no firm lines. Like they're still figuring out what they need to do, which is good. But I just don't think there's a clear guidelines on how to test paddles, what to look for, what passes, how one paddle can pass, and then 10 minutes later it doesn't.
Yeah, absolutely.
I
think that will evolve as it.
Yep. Somebody said, "What's your ideal court size outside of the 44 by 20? What would you prefer?"
Well, I think most people that lately that I've seen are trying to go like 60 by 30, like minimum.
Yes. Let's see.
I mean, they're trying to absolutely, I mean, for a guy like you, right?
You need the space. And as the sport gets bigger, you need more space for spectating. You need more space for lines people. You need more space for running.
And then for singles, you want even more space, correct?
So for me personally, this is probably by far on the more higher end, more spacious side, but I like 30 by 65 to 70.
Okay. Yeah.
Or even more. When did you learn how to Ernie? When did I learn how to Ernie, Jimmy?
Birth. He's the Ernie king. He was born earning.
It's funny they asked this question. For me, not to sound boastful or arrogant, I think I started earning right when I started playing. It just felt natural. Somebody taught me, hey, you can kind of jump across the kitchen line, and it just felt really natural to me. And so,
do you remember your first Ernie? Because I've seen people that remember their first ATP.
Yeah. I don't. I mean, I remember specific shots, specific Ernies that just feel incredible.
Yeah.
But I don't remember the first time that I hit an Ernie.
Okay.
Yeah. Maybe I'll think back on that a little bit more.
Yeah, let's think about that. Yeah. Maybe we could do a top 5 favorite Ernies.
Yeah. Biggest lesson learning, or what's the biggest learning lesson while playing pickleball? Jimmy? Not to roll your eyes?
Yeah, definitely don't roll your eyes. We've learned that today. I think there's just different levels of pickleball, right? For you, obviously, it's a job. It's a profession. It's a career.
Yep.
It's how you support your family, feed your family. So for you, you're going to take it a lot more serious, and it's going to be a lot different than where, the casual player is going to take it. I think for me, the casual, rec player is, the friendships, the camaraderie, the just getting exercise, getting out matters a hell of a lot more than the wins and losses.
Yeah.
For you, I hope that you're trying to win and that you have that competitive spirit, because otherwise you're not going to be very successful.
Yeah. Agreed. I think for everybody it's going to be different. I always tell people, what are your expectations? What are you wanting to get? Are you just wanting to win? Are you wanting to exercise? Are you wanting to network, have fun?
Exactly.
And so once you outline those ideas or goals that you have, then I think there's different lessons to be learned with every one of those. But pickleball, there are so many lessons. Perseverance, never give up, keep working hard.
Absolutely.
The more work you put in, the more success you're going to have, just like in any other sport. So it's really cool. All right, last thing we'll wrap up on is MLP San Clemente. Somebody asked, what's it like playing with Ben Johns? It's great. I mean, I could go on and on about him and his talent. He is by far the GOAT at the moment. There's a lot of people who are talented and who come close to him, but what he's been able to do, he doesn't get enough credit for. I can't remember the exact statistic, but I was talking about it the other day with one of my friends. I think he went on like a 160 or 180 match win streak, not losing one match.
That's insane.
In singles.
Yeah, that's insane.
And that is unheard of, and I don't think that can ever be
and
replicated.
Was that first loss indoor at TOC because of the rain?
Yes. Yep.
Yeah, that's what I thought, because I remember, obviously we remember that clearly, and it was a huge deal at the time.
Yep.
And I believe he won't play indoor anymore.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of players, and he's going to lose. He's not going to be perfect, but
of course
he
not.
wins the vast majority of matches.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it's insane that he's been able to do it for so long and still continue to win. So, it's been great. And I'm lefty. He's righty. He likes to play the left side. I play the right side. And so for me, it's a very natural fit. We both Ernie. We both have our forehands in the middle. Yeah. And so all I have to really focus on when I'm playing with him is my favorite shot is the Ernie. And truth be told, a lot of people don't hit to my corner because they know I like to Ernie. And so it's forcing them to hit to Ben, which I let Ben do all the work.
Well, and Ben, straight from his own mouth, he said that he thinks the evolution of pickleball is going to be lefty-righty.
Yeah.
That everybody's going to try and go lefty-righty.
Hopefully one day he decides to live by that. And
or he's going to make Colin switch to left and work on it. But
true. Do I feel pressure? I think the first few points, I might feel a little bit of pressure, but then once you get going, I mean, I've been playing pickleball and tennis for a long time, but pickleball for close to 10 years, a lot of tournaments. And so after the first few points, it kind of settles in.
Do you get nerves like before a match? Are you nervous?
I like to say I don't. I'm sure there's some that I do. But like I said, once you do something for 10 years or even more if you include tennis, 20, 30 years, then it feels a little bit more routine. Yeah. Somebody asked about the prize money, and I think the winning team is kind of tricky because you get appearance fees based on your draft pick. I'm not 100% certain, but I think the number one draft pick gets around $7,000 to $8,000 just for showing up.
This is a good topic because I think people are always curious how much money pickleball players really make.
Yeah.
Because I was told once that you're a millionaire.
Oh yeah, I'm liquid cash millionaire.
That you make $1 million a year.
Yeah.
Just straight from your sponsorships.
I wish. There are some players that are doing that. There are some players that are doing that for sure, but I am not one of those players yet.
See, you like that?
Yeah. But yeah, so MLP, it gets a little bit different because there's so many different things that play into it. But I believe the number one draft pick gets $7,000 to $8,000, and then that amount, I believe, depending on their status with PPA, I think it gets matched by PPA, and then depending on how you finish, also will determine your prize money. And so the winning team, I believe, each player. Oh my gosh!
Is it 25,000? It's 100,000, right?
Yeah, it's around there.
Yeah. So just
for Ben Johns, I would imagine. I don't know for sure because I haven't asked him, but I would imagine winning last MLP, he got 30 to 40 or even a little more.
That would be my guess because if he got 25 for winning and then say he gets 8 plus it's matched 8, he's in the 40 plus range. Plus,
his
I guess that
sponsors.
Yola's probably paying him a little bit.
Yeah, a
and
few bonuses in there.
yeah, so I mean that's not a bad payday for him to
for a
spend
weekend.
Yeah, to spend a
Get
weekend in Florida.
$30,000 to $40,000.
Although it is Daytona, which is rough, but he did get to
None
spend.
of the pros like Daytona.
Yeah, he got to spend a weekend in Florida, and that's not a bad.
Yeah.
That's not a bad showing for him.
Okay, last question: Pablo versus Tyson. Who wins in a fight?
Yeah, I think this is a good question. I mean, Tyson doesn't even teach his own clinic, so I think he'd have someone fight Pablo for him. So I'm going to put my money on Pablo on that one.
Well, JW was saying where Pablo's from, and he's from Colombia.
Yeah, I think he's from Colombia. Yeah,
JW was saying some interesting, spicy stuff.
Yeah,
but,
Pablo's not scared, obviously.
But Tyson, he was a wrestler.
Well, that's fine. But, we talk about UFC wrestlers.
Yeah.
I mean, can he get Pablo to the ground? That's the question.
I like Pablo. Pablo's great. Super nice. Super nice.
Honestly, I think Pablo and Fed, I think that partnership is going to be a problem coming up in terms of they are going to make a lot of noise.
Yeah. They already have.
Yeah, they have. Absolutely, they have. But I think they're just going to keep climbing the ranks. They're both very young.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I think that it's exciting, and I think they bring a lot of emotion, and it's kind of fun to watch, to be honest.
Cool. Love it. Well, this podcast, we had a lot of issues with video, but the voice should be pretty good. So hopefully the voice doesn't cut out. I apologize. This was my first time ever doing my own podcast. I'll be doing the editing, piecing it all together. So hopefully there's not too many errors in there. Jimmy, I appreciate your time. You did show up late as per usual. This guy is always late. Anyways, we're hoping to do this.
And you did roll your eyes when I showed up. So
they
I
were
appreciate
stuck
that.
in my head.
Appreciate that.
Well, I wonder if I get like eyes painted on my
Your
eyelids.
face is going to get stuck like that. Your
No,
mom
my
probably
eyelids,
told
so
you
I can
that.
close my eyes and people will think they're
Yeah,
still
there
open
you-
or something.
Perfect. Done.
Yeah.
Good idea.
Yeah, just don't accuse me or go public with this.
Yeah,
I mean,
absolutely.
I guess it
won't-
already is public.
I won't
but
tell anybody.
on your large platform that you
Yes,
have.
huge. Both of my followers.
Exactly. All right. Once again, thank you for joining us. We'll probably try to do this. I don't know, once every 1 or 2 weeks or whenever
let's
we
do
get
it.
around
We need
to
to
it.
we need to do a MLP preview. I'd love to get your take on that. And
Yeah. If you guys ever have any questions, feel free to drop them down low in the comments. Go easy on us. Go easy on me. Jimmy, you can go hard on.
yeah, I'm good. I'm thick-skinned,
Thick-skinned. All right.
big-boned.
Okay. Once again, thanks everyone. Have a good night.
Until next time, subscribe and follow along to stay current with the King of the Court podcast, hosted by Tyler Loom.